Okay, it's 10:05. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
For those that do not know me, I'm Christine Anderson, acting president in the wake of WC's loss. I have a couple announcements, and then I'll open up the floor for the other board. The biggest announcements that I have are we've got 3 new board members. So Bob Cooper has returned to the board as director of memberships. Many of you will remember Charles Hill. He's now returning as field trip director. And then you might also remember Dave Clark, who did what I'm doing with the adult programming. He is going to be the assistant field trip. So let's give them a warm welcome back and thank them for stepping up in the club's time of need. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to some great field trips. If any other board members have a short update, we want to keep it kind of short and brief so that the presenter will have plenty of time to do his topic. I know the show chair has some updates, so I'll give the floor to Josh.
Hey there, Josh, show chair, Josh Anderson, also the secretary of the board. Thanks, Christine. I just had a couple of announcements, and I may announce them again after the meeting if we get a few more people to log on, if that's okay. But everybody here should know that the dates have been changed for the meeting, excuse me, the show, and that they're going to be December 6th and 7th with move-in on the 4th and 5th, and then closing down afterwards on the 6th and 7th. The Agri Center has been notified, contracts have been changed, emails have been sent out, and dealers are being contacted. If there were any, I'll say this again at the end of the meeting, but if there are already members that are also dealers or friends that are dealers, please have them reach out to me via the contact information on the newsletter, via phone or email. They can talk about deadlines, which we're tentatively setting for July 31st of this year to present or be a dealer at the show. That gives them about the same amount of time to set up that we would with the old deadline. And I'm also looking for committee help. People that would like to be on the committee, feel free to let me know via email or text or phone. And that can be things like people that are good with graphics programs like Adobe Illustrator, or anybody that just generally wants to help pitch a hand, get this show off, and have it be a success in honor of WC. With that, that's all I've got for now, Christine. And I might again announce that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other board member have any announcements? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself. No. All right. Well, I'll make an announcement for memberships. Renewals are due. So send them to Bob via his address and or at the March show. No, see, you've got me all confused with show and dates at the March meeting. And with that, I will hand it over to Jeremy. I forgot to pull up the bio. Forgive me. I've got to do that. Oh, yeah. Also, this is being recorded so that we can show it to people later. And I will introduce Jeremy. Some of you might remember his presentation last year. It was great, and we're looking forward to learning more about it this year. But Jeremy Veldman has had a lifelong passion for astronomy since his childhood days in Western Michigan. He graduated from Christian Brothers University with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and has a master's in electrical engineering and MBA from Mississippi State University. He worked for 9 years in the semiconductor industry before returning to Memphis to become an independent entrepreneur and to help build the Memphis Astronomical Society by spreading the passion and awareness for astronomy and related sciences. So we appreciate your time and we look forward to your presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to see everybody again. Before I get started, I just want to make sure I do have screen sharing capabilities. me go ahead and double check that in a minute.
You should.
The host is disabled
Uh-oh.
participant screen sharing. So if you could
All right, here we go.
enable me to share
I'll see
screen.
if that works.
Yes, looks good.
There we go. Thanks for
I think
sticking.
we are good here. Okay. So it's nice to be back. I spoke to your group before. I want to say it was June 2023, somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact date, but I know it was well in advance of what I'm going to talk about tonight, which is a recap of the solar eclipse. I've had this date on my calendar for a while now. And after the talk I gave to your group a couple of years ago, you basically booked me for a follow-up call. So that's what tonight's presentation is. It's going to be an astronomy talk. And we're going to kind of recap what happened last April for the solar eclipse. Hopefully, many of you saw it or know somebody who did see it. Very rare astronomical event. And I'll share my experience. I think the story around my experience that is both a science lesson and also a life lesson. So, but anyway, I enjoyed speaking to your group. The engagement and the participation was very positive, and it's nice to be back, even though the topic is maybe not in line with some of the things that you guys do typically. I know you do a lot of field trips with some of the stuff that you do. We've done similar things in our group. I've had a lifelong passion for astronomy going back to when I was 6 years old. There were two things that got me started. So one of them was seeing Star Wars. My parents took me to that. That's another story. The second thing is I witnessed a lunar eclipse in the backyard with my father when I was 7 years old. It changed my life. And interestingly enough, we got a lunar eclipse coming up next month. I'll talk more about that at the end of this presentation. So if you want to see something cool in the night sky, mark your calendars for the evening of March 13, March 14. So anyway, here we go. Let me go ahead and get started. I got a lot of slides to get through here. Hopefully you get a lot of good value out of this. So again, we're going to recap what happened last April. April 8th, we had a total solar eclipse. And in general, I would say that the year 2024 was quite a year for astronomy. Never had a year like this before, may never have it again. So we had several things going on here. First of all, we had an aurora in Memphis, not only once, but twice. Never thought I would witness an aurora in Memphis, Tennessee, of all places. We had one in May and we had one again in October. And I was able to see both events and photograph them, as you see here in the upper right. So normally I think you got to go to Iceland or the North Pole or someplace like that, or maybe northern parts of the United States. But we actually had that last year twice. I also had the opportunity to travel to Chile and see the southern Milky Way as well as the Magellanic Clouds. You can see an image here in the upper left. That was an unforgettable experience, maybe my top memory of last year. And then I went to the Okie-Tex Star Party, again for stargazing in the fall. And then we had a comet also. Comets are really popular for people who like to do what I do. So I'm not as into them as some of my peers are, but it's still pretty cool. We had a good looking comet toward the end of last year. So, but tonight I want to talk about what happened on April 8th, and that's a total solar eclipse. So, and again, hopefully most of you, if not all of you, saw this. So solar eclipses are rare. And just kind of summarizing here, the key ideas for my talk today are that a solar eclipse occurs somewhere on Earth every 18 to 24 months. So the last one was on April 8th. The next one is going to be on August the 12th, 2026, next year. Not going to be in the United States. You got to travel. Typically, you got to travel a long way to see a solar eclipse. And that's because the moon is so much smaller than the Earth. And if you really want to see a solar eclipse, you got to be in that narrow band called the path of totality. That's the moon's umbral shadow. It only covers 1% of the daylight side of the Earth, which is why, on average, only 1 in 10,000 people have ever seen a solar eclipse. So if you saw last year's solar eclipse, you're in good company. You're one of only 10,000 people on average who's ever seen one. If you saw 2 of them, you're even rarer company, because we had two opportunities. April 8, 2024 was the first total solar eclipse in the U.S. since 2017, and it's the last solar eclipse in the United States until the year 2044. We got to wait a while. However, we do have a lunar eclipse coming up next month on March 14. It's the opposite of a solar eclipse, more common, also pretty dramatic. So there are some opportunities to see some cool things in the night sky. So let's break this down. If you look at solar eclipses in the United States over about a 70-year time frame, going from the late 70s to the 2040s, you can see we had one in 1979 that was only in the Pacific Northwest. Then we had a 38-year gap from 79 to 2017. I waited 32 years, 33 years to see the 2017 solar eclipse. It was on my calendar ever since I was a 10-year-old boy and saw a partial eclipse on the playground at school. So then I knew we had another one coming up in 2024, even better. And now we got a 21-year gap before we get another cross-country eclipse. The one in 2045 will be the best one yet. However, we got, we'll see if we survive that long. So, but the gist is, I knew these two eclipses were coming up, wanted to make them count. So missing the 2024 eclipse was not an option. Now, what is a solar eclipse? A solar eclipse occurs when the moon gets between the Earth and the sun, and it blocks out the sun's light for a few minutes during the day. You can see here a diagram, not to scale, but essentially the moon between the sun and the Earth, and the moon's shadow being projected on a very small portion of the Earth's surface. Now, the moon's shadow is divided into two parts. You got the penumbral shadow, which is the partial shadow, and then you got the umbra, which is the full shadow. Now, if you're in the penumbra, you see a partial eclipse. That's what you would have seen if you stayed in Memphis. You did not see a total solar eclipse. Experientially, it's literally the difference between day and night, which is why a solar eclipse is either a 1 or a 0. I hear some things like, I saw a 96% total solar eclipse, and that was good enough for me. No, you didn't see a 96% solar eclipse. You saw a 0 solar eclipse because you were not in the path of totality. You got to be in the umbra if you want to see a solar eclipse. So it really is all or nothing. It's a 1 or a 0. You're either a winner or you're a loser. So if you were not in the path, then you were a loser on April 8th. So now, quick review here. The moon orbits the sun, or I'm sorry, the moon orbits the Earth every 29 and a half days, and it goes through phases. We see this. So the new moon occurs when you have a new lunar cycle. That's why it's called a new moon. It's between the Earth and the sun. We don't see it. And basically, you're starting a new lunar cycle. This is the phase of the moon that is our favorite for astronomy guys like me, because we don't like the moon's light blotting out the starlight when we do observing. So we look for the darker moon is what we call it when we're out observing. And you wait a few days, you sometimes see a crescent in the sky early in the evening. That's your waxing crescent. Then your first quarter, then it gets to the gibbous phase. And of course, the opposite of a new moon is a full moon. And that's when the moon is full and bright at night. So, and then of course, then you go through the back end. So this lunar cycle occurs every 29 and a half days. So that of course begs the question, if the moon gets between the Earth and the sun every month, why don't we see eclipses every month? The reason for that is because the plane of the moon's orbit around the Earth is tilted at a 5-degree angle with respect to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun. You can see it here. This is a diagram to scale of just how far apart the moon and the Earth would be in space. And you can see here that most months, the moon is either below or above the Earth, and the shadow of the moon misses the Earth, which is why most months during a new moon, we don't get an eclipse, and why most months, when the moon is full, we don't get an eclipse either. We see, basically a regular full moon in the sky. But you can see just how far apart the Earth and the moon are in space and how narrow that shadow cone is, which is why it's so rare to get a solar eclipse. To get a solar eclipse, 3 things need to happen simultaneously. Now, where the planes intersect, again, the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun and the plane of the moon's orbit around the Earth, they intersect at 2 points called lunar nodes. You can see here in the diagram on the left, the orange path is the path of the Earth's orbit around the sun. And then the other one is, again, the path of the moon's orbit around the Earth. Again, tilted at about a 5-degree angle. Where those planes intersect, those are called lunar nodes. So 3 things need to happen simultaneously. Number 1, to get a solar eclipse, the moon needs to be new, basically between the Earth and the sun. It's got to be in its new moon phase. Secondly, it's got to be located on a lunar node, again, where those planes intersect. And then the third thing that needs to happen is that the moon needs to be at perigee. Now, what's perigee? The moon orbits the Earth not in a circle. It's a slightly squashed path called an ellipse. Same with the planets. So there are times during the month when the moon is closer to the Earth, call that perigee. And there are times when it's further away. We call that apogee. So if the moon is at perigee, you see a bigger moon in the sky because it's closer. If it's at apogee, it's further away. So again, if it's new, if it's at perigee, and if it's on a lunar node, those three conditions, somewhere on Earth, you're going to get a solar eclipse. Now, what's the difference between apogee and perigee? Here's another diagram. Again, lower left here, you can see that the size of the moon in our sky varies by about 14%, depending on whether it's at apogee or perigee during a full moon. Now, to the right here, you can see the relative sizes of the moon, the Earth, and the sun if they were all at the same distance. So the sun is enormous, over 1 million times larger than the Earth. And of course, the moon is even smaller than the Earth. So to get the sun's diameter, you would need to line up 400 moons. The diameter of the sun is 400 times larger than the diameter of the moon. However, the sun is also 400 times further away. So from our vantage point on Earth, the sun and the moon appear to be essentially the same size in our sky. It's a miraculous, what they call cosmic coincidence. That even though the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, it's also 400 times further away. So the moon and the sun are the same size in our sky. Again, not quite. In this situation, if the moon were at perigee, closer to Earth, and it was again on a node and it was new, then the moon would be large enough in our sky to fully cover the sun's disk, and we would get a solar eclipse. Now, if the moon was at apogee, opposite situation, it would be further away. Again, look at the diagram in the upper left here. You'd have a smaller moon, and if it was located at a node and it was new, then the moon at apogee would not be large enough in our sky to completely cover the sun. So you would get what's called an annular eclipse, otherwise known as a ring of fire, annulus being the term for ring, Latin term for ring. We had an annular eclipse on October 14, 2023. That's a couple months after I spoke to your group. I was able to see that event also in Ely, Nevada. I was part of a team from the Exploratorium in San Francisco that was doing a live broadcast of that eclipse. The Weather Channel was there also. Skies were clear, and it was a successful eclipse. And you can see here a picture in the center of this annulus, this ring of fire eclipse. Again, the moon covering the sun, but not completely covering the sun because it's further away. It's at apogee, and you get this annulus, or ring of fire eclipse on October 14, 2023. Still dramatic, but nothing compared to what we saw last year, but it was still a great event. So the gist of it is, since I spoke to your group last, we've had 2 solar eclipses in the United States. We had an annular eclipse on October 14. Here's the path from essentially Western Oregon all the way through Texas. And then 6 months later, we had April 8th, 2024 total solar eclipse. So this is what happened. Now, again, to see these eclipses, you had to travel into this path of totality, or the path of annularity. That's why a solar eclipse is sometimes called an alignment, not of the sun, moon, and the earth, but of the sun, the moon, and you needing to make an effort to get into that path of totality, or that path of annularity. All right, now a quick review here of the different phases of the eclipse, or different stages. So the whole show is about 3 hours long if you want to see everything from the beginning to the end. Most people only stick around for the few minutes of totality, where all the action is. First contact occurs when the moon first touches the disk of the sun, and then the partial phases happen for about an hour, hour and a half, give or take. Second contact is where all the action occurs, and that's when the moon completely covers the disk of the sun. And then again, if you're in a total solar eclipse, it goes dark for a few minutes. You see the corona, you see the diamond ring, the Bailey's beads, all the dramatic effects of a solar eclipse. Third contact happens when the eclipse ends and the moon starts to move off. And then you got all the partial phases on the back end. This is when usually people start up their cars and drive home and leave. The astrophotographers stay, and then they photograph everything. And then fourth contact is at the very end here when the eclipse is over. To see the partial phases of an eclipse, or to see an annular eclipse, again, ring of fire, you need special eclipse glasses. American Paper Optics right here in Memphis is the #1 supplier in the world of eclipse glasses. They shipped them all over the place. And they made some glasses for the Memphis Astronomical Society also, 5,000 pair that we gave out at outreach events. They had a member of the president's cabinet visit their offices in Bartlett last year, a week before the eclipse. And I was invited to tag along. Here I am with John Jarrett, the CEO. Thumbs up for the Memphis community. And the reason I was invited is because I did a video demonstrating another app that they sell for eclipses, which is the Solar Snap app. It's a little film that you stick on the back of your iPhone by your camera, and then you can manipulate your phone to actually take a photograph of the sun, either during regular day or during the eclipse. So I use this for the annular eclipse, and I use it for the total solar eclipse. Basically, it's a simple app that you download. You can tweak the zoom, the exposure, and the focus, and you can take a picture of the sun, did the different phases of the eclipse or the ring of fire during the annularity. Not DSLR quality, so the astrophotographers cringe when I show them this. But for a regular person like you and me, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on equipment. It's not a bad option if you want to spend like 10 or 15 bucks. So, okay, here's a NASA visualization of the path of totality for the April 8 eclipse. And again, you're seeing a new moon between the Earth and the sun, and just how far away and how narrow that shadow band is, covering 1% of the daylight side of the Earth. And again, the path of totality began in western Mexico, crossed up through Mexico, and then into Texas, crossed the state of Texas, up into Arkansas, southern tip of Louisiana, just past Memphis, Illinois, Indiana, up into the Ohio Valley, crosses the Great Lakes, Buffalo, up into northern New York, and then New England out to sea. Now the shadow travels about an hour and a half at 1,800 to 3,000 miles per hour, so much faster than the speed of sound. Depending on where you were, you had a duration of totality anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes, so not bad. Solar eclipses were a big deal in the 19th century, and there were several expeditions that were documented in the Sky and Telescope just before this eclipse. One of the most remote, and then these were expeditions that people would take over hundreds of days and travel thousands of hours to do solar science. One of the most remotest expeditions was to a tiny island in the Caroline Island, some 2,100 miles southwest of the Hawaiian Islands. This was back for the solar eclipse of May 6, 1883. They experienced 5.5 minutes of totality. It was a 22-member U.S. English expedition. Took 101 days, and it covered more than 24,000 kilometers. So a serious commitment back in the 19th century to see a solar eclipse. And success was anything but assured. Even with careful planning and preparation, there was no guarantee of success or even survival. James Melville Gillis led a 4-man U.S. Navy expedition to almost Peru for 1 minute of totality on September 7, 1858, while crossing the formidable windswept deep sand of Peru's Sakura Desert. He became so severely dehydrated that he collapsed. Quote, "Whilst lying on the ground," he wrote, "I instructed my young friend as to each portion of the telescope until it was satisfactorily mounted." Another British astronomer, Father Stephen Perry, traveled to Salut Isle off the coast of French Guiana to observe the total solar eclipse of December 22, 1889. He fell so ill with dysentery that on E-Day he had to be carried to his instrument so he could observe. 5 days later, he died. So people literally died traveling to see a total solar eclipse back in the 18th and 19th century. And here, all you had to do was make a short drive from Memphis to Arkansas, Louisiana, or Missouri, wherever, to see this eclipse. So it's pretty rare for the path of totality to come to you. Very rare. Now, seeing it is one thing. Seeing it under clear skies is something else. And here's a slide I showed years in advance showing climatology data for April. And of course, the big question a year or two in advance is, where is it going to be clear and where do we plan to see this eclipse? Now, blue and green are good. That's lower cloud cover. Red and orange are bad, higher cloud cover. So this is based on climatology data showing where it's more likely statistically to be clear on April 8, going back 25 years to early 2000. However, climate and weather are two different things. So on eclipse day, you get weather, not climate. And here's a snapshot that we took on April 5, 2024, 3 days prior to the eclipse. And just to orient you here, blue is bad and white is good. And these numbers show the percentage of cloud cover for the different regions along the eclipse path. And this was getting everybody nervous because everybody a year or two in advance was booking Airbnbs and hotels in Texas, thinking that it was going to be clear there based on climatology data. Well, here we go, less than a week before the eclipse, and we realize Texas is likely going to be clouded out. And even Arkansas and Missouri were not a sure thing. The weather kept going back and forth. A week before the eclipse, it was very stressful. We had rain in Memphis, we had clouds, and I had booked 2 Airbnbs in Texas, canceled them both. And we're just really scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. Watch the Weather Channel every day. And again, we're getting 3 or 4 days out. And the one place that was consistently clear, projected to be clear, was Maine. And in fact, Jim Cantori is the one who finally sold me. He just said on the Weather Channel 3 days before, he said, Maine is the place, literally he said these words, Maine is the place to be. There is no other. So I'm on the phone talking to my buddy Brian. We're trying to decide. We were going to go, shoot for Arkansas. We were thinking Cape Girardeau in Missouri. We had looked at spots in Illinois, even Indiana, even as far north as Erie, Pennsylvania, just depending on where the weather was clear. And 3 days out, we just couldn't get a good feeling. So finally, he said, I'm going to book my airline tickets to Boston, and we're going to drive up to Maine. And I said, okay. He made a very interesting comment to me. He said, just 3 days out. And again, Arkansas could possibly be clear. Same with Missouri. But we were not 100% confident. And but we knew Maine, in all likelihood, was going to be clear. So we got to a point where we were about 60 to 70% sure it would be clear in Arkansas, but we were 95% sure it was going to be clear in Maine. Didn't want to miss this event. He says to me, we're at a point now where either decision we make, we're gonna live with regret. If we decide to stay and we go to Arkansas and it's clouded out, we're going to regret not going to Maine. If we go to Maine and it clears up here, we're going to regret going to Maine when we could have stayed here and saw it. So either way, we're going to be living with regret. Which regret do you want to live with? Stay here or go to Maine? And I told him, let's go to Maine, because I would rather live with the regret of going to a place where I know it's going to be clear with 95% probability than stay here and even and risk the possibility of missing it, knowing I could have gone to Maine and saw it. So that's where I decided to go to Maine instead of staying here. Now, ironically, Maine was in the middle of a nor'easter the week before. I mean, heavy winds, storms, snow on the ground. Chris Bruin was covering the nor'easter in England. And Chris interviewed me in Ely, Nevada briefly for the annular eclipse. So he was there also. And it was kind of interesting because the Weather Channel basically told him, when you're done with your assignment there, why don't you stick around for a couple of days and cover the solar eclipse, since you're in Maine anyway, and it's likely going to be clear there. So last minute, he was added to cover the solar eclipse in Maine, which turned out to be the best spot. So serendipity played a role. But you can see here, this is a snapshot of the cloud cover on eclipse day from the Weather Channel about 5 hours before the eclipse. And again, Texas not looking good, 88, 64% cloud cover. The complete opposite of climatology data, whereas up here in Maine, where we were shooting, only 5%. Now, Arkansas and Carbondale and all these other spots, it worked out, but there was definitely somewhere from 20 to 30% probability of cloud cover. So, long story short, I parked myself on a golf course in northeastern Maine by the Slice restaurant, whose owners offered free parking and a warm welcome. Not a cloud in the sky, which is absurd for Maine at this time of year, and especially this winter, early spring, when it's been cloudy or rainy for weeks on end. A crisp breeze, snow still about, but near 60 degrees Fahrenheit by totality, so quite pleasant. Perhaps 100 people all around with some impressive cameras or scopes, We enjoyed 3 minutes, 18 seconds of totality, which felt naturally like a minute. It all went by so fast, it was hard to keep up, but I savored the sudden twilight at second contact and the blazing diamond ring at third contact. The corona was magnificent, of course. Most spectacular of all were the prominences, including a necklace along the lower limb like pink Bailey's beads, plus a huge prominence nearby like an upside-down V for victory, you might say, having waited so long and traveled so far for this jaw-dropping celestial wonder. Peter Tyson, he's an editor for Sky and Telescope magazine. Couldn't have said it better myself. He was in the exact same spot that I ended up in, which is Island Falls, Maine. I didn't meet Peter. I read his articles in Sky and Telescope, but just by pure random coincidence, we ended up in the same spot. On the right here is a picture that Peter took and published in Sky and Telescope magazine. Here's a picture that my 9-year-old stepdaughter took from the same location. So this is Peter's picture for Sky and Telescope. This is my stepdaughter, my 9-year-old stepdaughter's picture with her iPhone. I know I'm biased, but for me personally, I like this picture better. Just saying. So we ended up in Island Falls, Maine, the last place that I thought I was going to be when I spoke to your group earlier. Maine wasn't even on the radar. Forget New England. Climatology says it's going to be cloudy. Turns out the weather was clear there. You can see we're on a golf course, majestic setting, patches of snow all around from a late nor'easter. I got my buddy and my astro brother Brian there. Wanted to see an eclipse with him. I got my wife, I got my stepdaughter, and a couple of cameras. Slice restaurant serving pizza, French fries, and drinks. And we get out there, and the eclipse starts about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, it's about 2:30 or so, give or take. So I'm going to unshare now just to make sure that I'm sharing with sound, because I got to show you something here, but I don't know if I can share with sound. I know there's an option in Zoom to do this. That doesn't look like it's giving me the button, so I may not be able to show what I'm showing here with sound. I'm going to show it anyway. So here is a video of our experience during totality. Can anybody hear the sound or not? No sound? All right, let me try one more time here. I do want to show this if possible. Again, Zoom usually gives you the option to share with sound. I'm not sure why it's not doing it now. Advanced files. You guys are recording this, right? All right. I'm going to have to do it without sound, unfortunately, because I don't know where the button is.
I don't know where the button is either.
Audio settings. Share screen. Maximize window. Enable remote control of all applications. Yep. Just give me 1 second here. Well, okay. All right. Well, we'll have to do it without sound. Share video. Wait. Blur my background, virtual video setting. Well, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna have to do it without the sound because I'm not sure why it's not doing it. But anyway, here we go. So this is about a minute before totality. Again, standing on the golf course. Still daylight, but again, about 99% of the sun is covered right now. It shows you how bright the sun is just before totality. So even though 99% of the sun is covered, it's still basically daylight. But we're seconds away now from totality. You can see the background here, patches of snow on the ground. My buddy Brian's got his camera ready.
I'm
I'm
hearing
scrambling
sound now.
There's sound.
To regular binoculars, because during totality, you can take off your solar filters and you can look at the sun naked eye. It's the only time in my life that I can look at the sun and see the corona, the wispy outer atmosphere of the sun during a total solar eclipse. So I want to look at it not only with my naked eye, but I want to look at it through regular unfiltered binoculars. So we're getting ready now. And again, we're seconds away, but most of the sun is covered. It shows you how bright the sun is. Even if you're in a point where 99% of the sun is covered, the sun is still 10,000 times brighter than it is during totality. That's why you got to be in the path. So it's coming now. I'm using my solar film to see the last little sliver of the sun. There's my stepdaughter taking a picture. It's getting darker. And in the lower right, you can see the star, the bright planet Venus starting to pop out. Look at the lower right below the sun. You see the dot. So the sun's getting darker. The sky's starting to change. And here comes Venus popping out. Now it's a crescent. I'm going crazy here. Everybody's cheering. A lot of emotions. None of which you can hear. Now I got a patch of snow in front of me. My buddy Brian is pointing out shadow bands that are whispering like little snakes across the patch of snow. You can see Venus popping in. So here we go. Here we go. Getting close now. Down to diamond ring. Bailey's beads. Totality. So in an instant, it changes from day to night. And that's what's so thrilling about a solar eclipse. So I'm just getting chills now, just reliving this experience. From Island Falls, Maine, my shirt, which I bought. So these 3 minutes are surreal during totality. You never experience anything like this. I'm showing the 360-degree sunset all around the horizon. So it's like a 360-degree sunset. You can see mountains, you can see the snow, and of course you hear people cheering. There's Venus right there. And you can see the eclipse sun right there. I'm looking at the sun with my naked eye. I can see the corona, the wispy outer atmosphere. I can see Venus there, and I can see Jupiter to the other left. I couldn't see Saturn or Mars. There are 4 planets out. I can only see 2 of them, Venus and Jupiter. And again, you see that deep twilight, that deep sunset all around you. Standing in the shadow of the moon. The shadow's moving 3,000 miles per hour. So in Arkansas, you experience 4 minutes of totality if you're on the center line. Where I was in Maine, it's 1 minute less because the shadow's moving so much faster. But I'm looking at the sun now with regular binoculars, not solar filtered binoculars, because the sun is eclipsed. And I can see details on the solar corona. The whispers, the streamers, I can see a really bright naked eye prominence, which I'll show you more details in just a second. But again, this is real time, 3 minutes and 18 seconds of duration during totality. Very few people in their lifetime ever experience this, being in the shadow of the moon like this. So every second counts. I'm scrambling here, putting my binoculars down. I'm just taking it all in. And just staring at the corona. Stare at the corona as often as you can. Again, the dot to the lower right is planet Venus.
Yeah, that is just unbelievable.
Let me get my iPhone. Venus to the lower right.
That is the corona.
There's the eclipse sun, the black dot of the moon. And then there's Jupiter to the other left. So there's Jupiter and Venus. I'm seeing the 2 brightest planets in our sky. Right by the eclipse sun.
The phone, of course. You can see it naked eye.
Now pay attention. Again, another shot of the 360-degree sunset. Mountains in Maine. Snow. And then we're just looking at the sun.
Get bright again as the shadows departing.
Now you can see the sky in front of you starting to brighten up. I'm seeing the shadow move, starting to move away. So now daylight's returning. You're getting toward the back end of the total phases of the eclipse. So I'm still looking at the moon. And we're just looking at that prominence, that bright pink naked eye prominence, very active solar disk. So now you can see it's starting to get brighter here. I'm just trying to take it all in. 3, 2, 1. Just like that, it's over.
Now
Now the moon, it gets bright again. Now you can put your filters back on. Totality's over.
Bands again.
Now it gets bright. Now I'm looking at, you look at the snow carefully, you'll see little black wisps. These are the shadow bands in the snow. So right there, just look at the snow for a second. It's kind of hard to see. I'm seeing shadow bands rippling across the snow like waves in a pond.
Venus is still out.
Try to capture it. It's hard to capture it, but just really surreal. So now daylight returns.
So Still see Venus.
And Venus and Jupiter are still out. And I'm just taking it all in.
Wow. Venus is still out. Venus is still out.
There's
There's
everybody
there's Brian.
just looking at the sun as daylight returns.
Unbelievable.
So that's totality. Here's a shot that my buddy Brian took of the eclipse sun. This is the diamond ring. Here's another shot. To the lower left here, you can see some of these pinkish areas. These are prominences, solar flares erupting from the solar disk that you see from the chromosphere in the sun during totality. Another shot. This is a composite image of, again, the wispy outer atmosphere of the sun called the corona. So how did everybody else do? This is a video of the moon's shadow moving over the path of totality on April 8th. And you can see here, Texas was clouded out, but Arkansas, Southern Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio all worked out. So as it turned out, the weather forecast was kind of grim in a lot of these spots, which is why we bolted for Maine. But those of you who stayed, the forecast overachieved and you did very well. Plan A was Hardy, Arkansas, Camp Kaikima. And one of our members, Mylan, he went there and he was able to see the eclipse. Here's a shot that he took from his sun funnel off of his telescope during the partial phases. Here's one of the diamond ring. And then another one of our members, John Jernigan, he also went to Camp Kaikima and he saw the eclipse. Again, another shot here of the diamond ring. And then he's got a composite here of the moon moving across the solar disk and eclipsing the sun. Very spectacular. Arvind, another one of our members, took his family to Hardy, Arkansas. He's just writing. I got a lot of feedback from some of the members of our group about their experience seeing the eclipse. Just thanked our team. Wife, kids, and I kept an eye on the cloud cover, went to Hardy, at Percentage at Hardy, and decided, and Cape Girardeau. They went to Griffin Park and Hardy and stationed themselves there. It was just spectacular, an otherworldly experience. So he saw it. Mikhail, another one of our members, he saw the eclipse as well and took this composite also, 2,000 pictures every 5 seconds with a Canon 6D Mark II camera. You can see the sun. This is sped up, of course, not real time. You can see the sun moving across the disk of the moon. Brent, one of our top astrophotographers, he went to Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, and met the mayor, set up there, and he gave a very detailed write-up on our Facebook page. I'm not going to read it all, but he set up a Williams Optics telescope and took several spectacular shots. He does solar imaging anyway, so he's become a professional at imaging the sun. And he's got, again, all the phases of the eclipse from first contact to diamond ring totality, Bailey's beads, and then the back end here. And he did an excellent job of just documenting all that. Here's a close-up of totality. And again, the lower right, you see that bright V prominence that just, captured all of us. It was just spectacular. Byron Wiley went to Indiana and he snapped this shot. This is a spectacular close-up of the Bailey's beads. Bailey's beads are just before totality. You're seeing sunlight being filtered through the mountains and the valleys on the edge of the moon's limb. The moon is not smooth, of course. It's got craters and it's got mountains and valleys. So you're seeing those last few wisps of sunlight going through the valleys on the edge of the moon, and they form these beads called Bailey's beads. And then you see this bright V here on the edge of the sun. Now, to compare that, Jupiter is 1,000 times larger than planet Earth. That V right there is almost the same size as the planet Jupiter. That's how big the sun is. So pretty amazing. Ashley, who's actually a friend of one of our members, she went to Indiana University and saw the eclipse in the Hoosier Dome. And in attendance was William Shatner, Captain Kirk. You can see him there in the lower right. Not bad at 93 years young. He turns 94 next month. He's got exceptional genes. James Holland took this composite also. If you look here closely, you can see details on the surface of the moon. So some of our members got really good with cameras too, not only seeing the eclipsed sun, but also being able to capture some surface details from the earth shine on the surface of the eclipsed moon, or the moon covering the eclipsed sun. And of course, this is another composite that one of our members took, basically several shots at different exposures, and then you combine them all together in a program like Photoshop, and you can really get the details of the corona. This is a spectacular image, but nothing can compare to what your eye sees during totality. This is why you travel, because just seeing it naked eye, your eye gets so much detail. There's just no way that a camera can capture what you can experience and what you can see yourself if you're in the path of totality. And then Sunita, she went to Bloomington, Indiana. Again, Bailey's beads, diamond ring, and another composite of the total eclipse. And then the different phases from basically the crescent just before totality, what I showed you in the video, basically a 99% eclipse sun, to diamond ring, Bailey's beads, totality, and then the back end. And then, of course, the corona. So I'm happy it worked out. The lesson for me in all of this, it's somewhat bittersweet because, again, hindsight's 2020. If I knew I had a shot at seeing it here, I would have stayed instead of traveling to Maine. So I did live with some regret. I'm not going to lie. I gave up the opportunity to see it with my dad, who saw it in Cape Girardeau, and I gave up the opportunity to see it with my 9-year-old son, who wasn't able to go. But I did see it with my 9-year-old stepdaughter, and I saw it with one of my best friends and my wife, and we were in a majestic setting. Couldn't have had better skies. But I'd be lying if part of me isn't somewhat regretful that it didn't stay and see it here. Having said that, the morning of the eclipse, I'm driving up into Maine to Houghton. I get a call from one of our members, and she says to me, I'm trying to find out where we're all meeting to see the eclipse. I'm driving through dense fog right now. I can barely see the road in front of me. And when I heard that and I got crystal clear blue skies in Maine, I thought, okay, maybe I made the right decision. So even though they saw it, it was dicey at best early on. After the eclipse is over, we drive back to our hotel in Bangor. We had a little bit of traffic, couple-hour drive from Island Falls back to Bangor, Maine. We still get back in good shape. Sun is still out. We did a little shopping. We go out for dinner. And then I get on the phone with my dad because I wanted to see how he did. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I'm getting ready to bed down. I call him. He is still on the road driving back from Cape Girardeau, stuck in traffic. He's like, yeah, traffic is backed up. We can't get across the bridge. We've been stuck in traffic for the last 6 hours. So I hear all those stories from people when I'm comfortably back at my hotel after having a nice dinner and a nice evening and having very little traffic issues getting back. And that was a second payoff for deciding to go to Maine. So it's bittersweet in some ways, but couldn't have beat the setting, and the circumstances also were somewhat favorable. So when's the next one? You can see here a chart of solar eclipses for the next 10 years. 2025 to 2035. None of them in North America. So if you want to see a solar eclipse like we had last year, all you got to do is travel to another continent. The next one in the United States will be August 23, 2044, northern Montana, western North Dakota. Following year, we get a spectacular one. So it's going to be about 20 years now before we get a chance to experience what we saw last year. You don't want to wait that long. Next year, there's one coming to Spain, and this one's already filling up with tours. August 12, 2026. I do plan to check this one out, budget permitting. But again, solar eclipses are rare, and you'll have to book international travel to some pretty exotic places if you want to see a solar eclipse before the 2040s. I'll end with this. March 14, we get a lunar eclipse. Not as spectacular as a solar eclipse, but I still think it's pretty dramatic. That's next month. It's the opposite of a solar eclipse. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon is between the sun and the earth, and we get what we just experienced. A lunar eclipse is when the moon passes through the earth's shadow and the moon goes dark. Now, it doesn't go completely dark, but you get this blood red moon like you see down here in the lower right. The other thing about a lunar eclipse is because the earth is so much larger than the moon, the entire nighttime side of the earth will get a chance to see the lunar eclipse. So you don't have to travel to see it. You can literally walk outside and view it from your driveway if you're willing to stay up. And this is what you'll see. This is a snapshot that I took back in 2021 of a lunar eclipse that we had in November. So you sometimes hear the term blood moon or, eclipse moon. You'll see that effect. You'll see kind of a dim, dull, blood red moon, because what you're seeing is sunlight being filtered through the Earth's atmosphere. And the Earth, of course, scatters blue light, which is why we see blue skies. The reds and the orange pass right through. So you're seeing every sunrise and every sunset on Earth projected onto the surface of the moon simultaneously during a lunar eclipse. When is it? Stay up late the evening of Thursday, March 13. And if you're local here, Germantown, Collierville, anywhere in Memphis, the partial eclipse will begin at 12:09 a.m. So just after midnight. And then the full eclipse will begin at 1:30 in the morning. So basically, the evening of March 13, early morning of March 14, plan to stay up until about 2:30 in the morning if you want to see a lunar eclipse. And of course, it's got to be clear. But if it's clear here, it might be worth checking out. So I know I will be, and I may be setting up a telescope somewhere as well. So still working out those details. And March 14 is a Friday and likely going into spring break. So this is not a bad way to kick off spring break. Not that any of you care about that, but just saying. All right, I got a YouTube channel. If you want to see a video of my experience in Maine for this solar eclipse, just go to YouTube at Jeremy Veldman. I've also got videos of some of the star parties I've attended and a whole bunch of personal stuff that none of you guys care about. But this video is on there if you want to see it. The Memphis Astronomical Society, again, they have a website and a YouTube channel. They meet once a month, and they've been around for 70 years, and they do outreach events around town. I am planning to possibly do more impromptu observing sessions as well myself. I'm still working out those details. If you know anyone who may be interested in astronomy or seeing anything in the night sky, keep me in mind. I'm in Collierville. I've done this a couple times already this year. Hey, we got a parade of planets. I've never seen anything through a telescope. Can you help me out? Meet me at Hinton Park, set up. I'll show you Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the moon, whatever's out through a telescope. That's what I do. 10:58. I think this meeting ends at 11 o'clock. So how'd I do? Pretty good on time?
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you
Hi,
very much.
Do you guys have your photos of what you took on yours? Didn't you go to Arkansas?
No, I went to Maine.
Oh, I'm asking Josh. Didn't you have pictures,
Oh,
Josh?
yeah, we
Yeah, because
did.
I went to Damascus. So my sister lives there. So my thing was I just walked outside and, because it's my property she lives on. And I just walked outside and took a picture. But this is the before. And this was the after.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was really good. I did have the filter. Thank you very much. I did put the filter on mine, and that's what I got.
Oh, you did? You had
Yeah,
the photo? Oh,
I had
excellent.
the filter.
Sweet.
So yeah. So it's really good. I got the lights too. So I live all the way out in town. I'm about 100 miles from Memphis. So I'm on 5 acres and it's black. I mean, it's dark. It's dark. So I did get amazing lights that came through. So yeah, they were really good. So
Excellent. Are you in Arkansas?
no, I've got property in Arkansas in Damascus. So I'm past Conway, past Greenbrier, go all the way up, and I'm up on the mountain. I have about 90 acres up there, and I inherited. It's
Wow.
ticks and chiggers. I'm not living there. I itch every time I walk on the property. I'm kidding. I booked my spray in sunscreen. Terrified. Yeah. So yeah, but I love it. My sister loves it. Ooh. No, yeah, I'm itching thinking about it. So yeah, it's beautiful, but I live all the way in Haywood County.
Wow.
Dark, 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 dark.
Yeah.
Dark.
Dark
I mean,
skies.
pitch black out there at night.
Astronomer's paradise
It
for
is. I'm
going up for
telling
deep
you.
sky stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, my sunrises are worth everything in the world to be out there. I mean, they're just absolutely magnificent.
Amazing.
We went over to
Hot spring.
Hot Spring. No, we were in
Hot spring.
Hot Springs. Okay, we were in Hot Springs, and then we got this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Yeah, I had almost 4 minutes, if not, I can't remember, but it was close to 4 minutes of totality. So it was pretty amazing. And all we had to do was walk out of our hotel up the hill and then walk right back to our hotel. So we missed all that traffic as well.
Yep. Those are the ideal conditions.
It was great.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
Love
you
it.
because of the show, because of your presentation. At that presentation, I was on the phone booking a Hampton,
Yep.
and it was like, oh, not many hotels left. So, and we were able to not miss that traffic. But the one thing I noticed, I don't know how much different it was in Maine due to the being colder up there. In Arkansas, the temperature, the thermal difference between daytime and then when the total eclipse happened, I mean, it was just it like wind whooshes in to take up that heat loss. It's amazing.
It almost sucked us up. Yeah, it's almost like it
remarkable.
knocked us over. I mean, I couldn't believe the wind coming in, and it was coming from both sides. It was like going upwards.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yep.
Yeah, that was another thing. We all went, "What was that?" And we
And
did
all
the
the
waves.
creatures.
We did see the waves. It was pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
You saw the shadow bands too? Yeah.
I did. I saw the shadow bands. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, and they were going across, and we're like, "Is that normal?" So we're all googling.
Yeah, that was eerie. Wasn't expecting that to see those.
It wasn't
A lot of
either
people-
because we're like,
yeah.
"Is that normal?
Yeah.
What's that?" You know, so we're all like looking and everything. But those are my mornings. Every morning I see that.
Wow.
Nice.
That's what I'm telling you. It is spectacular.
Spectacular.
It is. Every morning looks like that.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. That's Arkansas.
Yeah.
Some spectacular spots in Arkansas.
Yeah. But I'm in Haywood. Freda gets great ones too. She sends me, she's okay. We compare mornings. So who takes the best picture?
Mhm.
So yeah. Thank you so much. Cause I have really, gone outside, taking pictures, got my neighbors involved and, got the telescope out and we're all looking and talking. I just have men on my road. So we're all like, what you got down in that? We'll go out there and talk. They'll bring a cup of coffee. But yeah, it's good. So yeah, they like seeing what I'm doing and just talking about things. So
Excellent.
what causes the waves?
It's the same phenomenon that you see when you see twinkling stars. It's basically
Okay.
ripples in the atmosphere. And just before totality, you're seeing the disk, you're seeing the moon basically filter sunlight through a narrow disk. So the beams of light are being concentrated and then they're being filtered through these layers of the atmosphere at different temperatures. So light through different temperatures, it ripples and then that gets projected onto the surface. So
you explained that a whole lot better than I read it. I was like, what? Okay, so I'm going to ask him because all three of us read it. Me and my sister, she said, man, we have 40 years of college and I don't get it.
Right.
You explained it really simple. I was like, wow, okay. So much for those 4 pages of reading we didn't understand.
Yeah, it's why you see it only during a total eclipse, right?
Right.
Just before totality and just at the back end of totality.
The back end of it.
Those
Yeah.
shadow bands. Yep.
Yeah.
Something to watch for. So pretty amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
Nobody explains that really well. If you do a video, small that thing up and explain to people because we couldn't find anything out there.
That's a good tip. I might have to do that.
Yeah, because we were like, nobody's saying what it really is. I mean, we read a lot, but we're like, what is it?
No, it's a weird effect.
It was a weird, cool effect because we're like, ooh, okay, this is neat. So
The thing about an eclipse, solar eclipse, is there's a lot of sophisticated equipment now with astronomy. I mean, I know guys that are spending tens of thousands of dollars on cameras and lenses, and they take amazing pictures. I wish I could do it, but nothing substitutes you actually being there yourself in the path. So
it was worth
what
the
your
drive.
eye sees and what your senses experience, That's the thing I noticed too. I mean, you can take a picture of it and they're amazing, but it doesn't even come close
Mm-mm.
to capturing what you truly experience.
It was
That's
worth all the bumpy roads in Arkansas to get to my sister's. Fix the roads, people. We have the technology.
Yep. Yeah, right. Exactly. Fix the roads.
Fix the roads, people.
So,
Jeremy, I saw you using several apps in that presentation. Are there any apps that you recommend that we can use?
yeah, for the future, Totality by Big Kid Science would be the first app that I would download. I didn't include those slides. There's just so many slides in the presentation, but I do have slides on this. So if you do a search for Totality, I think it's free.
Okay.
See if I can bring it up here. Yeah, here. You can see it here.
And then what was the one that you used with the filter you put on your phone?
Right. So when you buy the solar eclipse, let me see if I can bring that one up too. I think I still have it. It's called Solar Snap app. And it's like a little, yeah, it's kind of hard to see on the camera. It looks like this. It's like a little,
Okay.
it's a yellow app with a dark sun in the center, for lack of a better way to say it. But it's called the Solar Snap app. And I do have a video on my YouTube channel that kind of shows you where to get it, how to download it,
Okay.
use it. It's pretty simple. You just got 2 or 3 things that you're tweaking to
Okay.
take some pictures of the sun with your phone.
Cool.
So, and then if you order it online, you get this. You can either get this from American Paper Optics. You can order it from their website. It comes with a solar filter film in there that you put on the back of your phone.
Okay.
And then it shows you how to download the app and then how to use it. It's like 13
Perfect.
bucks or so, 12, 13 bucks. So
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
it's the every man's way of taking a picture of the sun. Either that or spend $10,000 getting a camera, lens, and filters and all that stuff, and a tracking mount, and then power and all that stuff. Most people don't want to do that. So
I can afford the app.
There we go.
bingo.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and your great presentation. I learned a lot of stuff both times, and maybe we'll go to Spain.
Yeah.
That would be great. Love to see you guys in Spain. So yeah, I
Okay.
enjoy speaking to your group. You guys have a great
Thank
group.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions
military
before
hop
we
time.
let him go?
Did we freeze?
No? Okay. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day. And again, Jeremy, thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Happy to help. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your
You
weekend.
too. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Did Josh want to do any more on the show?
I didn't really see anybody jump in there that hadn't been there. It was just and I think it was just us at the beginning. So I don't know
Yeah.
if there's any dealers here. I can see everybody logged on. So
It was really good.
Yeah, that was
yeah,
great.
I didn't see anybody new that I can add on. Other
No.
so unfortunately, but that was a really good Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm downloading that app right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I bought that filter and I'm telling you, I got those great pictures. So
Yeah, I managed to do it without the app, but next time I'll have the app.
yeah.
And we'll make sure that we get this recording of the meeting out to the group again, so that people that weren't able to attend can just watch it at their leisure. And I think that'll be pretty cool. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of people attend, but if they see an option to watch it, maybe they can, see it again. And I thought it was well worth it. So
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind they had short notice.
Yeah.
So I think had they had maybe several weeks or something of knowing it was coming up,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the attendance would have been much higher. So this isn't bad.
I love
Short.
Zoom. I love it.
If another bad weather event happens, this is totally an option as
This
long
is the
as.
way.
And Mr. Veldman was really good at facilitating himself through the app, and that's great. But it's not that hard. We can help along whoever does it.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
Bob.
good.
Didn't we-
So,
I was just going to say, Christine might be able to go farther out in her reach for speakers if they're willing to do a Zoom meeting.
for
They may
sure.
be in
Oh,
Florida,
yeah.
but if they're willing to do a Zoom meeting, hey, we've got us.
Yeah.
A
Crow
whole new
Creek.
area that you can
Yeah.
pick from.
Yeah,
Yep.
Crow Creek Canyon. I'm telling you, the archaeology group that we go out, I go out once. I think Jan's gone, I've gone, and Doug. Well, I work in the lab because I don't want to barbecue out there. But they're great. I mean, they do. I've been watching them since COVID, and they do all their stuff online.
Oh, okay.
They do
I'll reach out.
amazing things. Yeah, so they're
I'll reach
great.
out.
Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, amazing. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bob, I'll see you in about an hour or so, and everybody else have a
Yeah.
great rest of your day.
Okay. Be
Right,
safe
appreciate
out
you
there.
guys.
Bye.
Thanks for putting it together. You guys
Yeah,
take
you're
care.
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks
Glad
for
you're there.
coming.
All
Thanks
right,
for
Cliff.
coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, y'all
Bye.
take care. All right, bye-bye.